Hello, welcome to this live stream. I'm going to be talking a lot about the physical body today. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chelsea Jarvis. I'm a feminine magnetism coach and founder of Magnetic Femininity. And a lot of what I talk about in my business is about relationships and the balance of energy between our masculine and feminine energy, and a lot of healing and a lot of stuff like that, a lot of dating, a lot of relationship energetics. But today I want to talk about something very different, something that I haven't really, I've talked about it in bits and pieces, but I've never really focused on this in my business because I've really been on my own journey with this for many years. So I'm just going to actually shut down. Facebook is on my computer over there and I need to not see what's going on outside of this live stream. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tag a couple people who mentioned that they wanted to be tagged. And in the meantime, if you know of anybody who struggles with this, with their relationship with their body, with exercise, with loving themselves as they are, regardless of what size they are, whether they're petite, whether they're larger, it doesn't really matter. And, I've been on both sides of that spectrum and everywhere in between. So if you know of anybody who really needs to be part of this conversation, please feel free to tag them in the comments. This is a public live stream, and I'm also going to be posting it on YouTube after. So if you prefer to watch on YouTube, that it will be available there. So now, I show up online in a way that comes across very confident, which for good reason I am. The way that I show up on the internet now, for those of you who are just meeting me in the last year or two, or maybe even more recent than that, you might not immediately pick up on the fact that body image and struggles with food, like my relationship with food, has been something that plagued me for such a long time. And it just felt like this dark cloud that was and I'm probably going to get emotional during this live stream because I can already feel it coming up, because there's a lot of this that I've never really shared publicly. So I'll just do my best to breathe through it, but there's going to be some emotional shares in here because this has been quite a bumpy journey for me. And the thing is, being a woman in this world where we're told that we have to look a certain way, that we have to be a certain way, that we have to wear a certain dress size, that, our breasts are supposed to look a certain way, that we're supposed to not have any stretch marks or cellulite or anything. Hi, Tanya. That we're supposed to fit a certain mold. And I mean, for anybody who's actually seen a variety of women's bodies, we know that that's women who have what is prescribed as the perfect body are extremely rare. Like that is the such a tiny percentage. And even among those, there's a lot of them who have had, surgical augmentation and a lot of outside help. And so, logically, we know that it's absolutely ridiculous to prescribe to such an unattainable version of beauty, or such an unattainable and unrealistic for many of us definition of what beauty is. But yet, here we are basing our entire self-esteem, our entire sense of worthiness within ourselves upon these prescribed definitions. And for me, my relationship with this, as it did for many of us, I'm sure if you, as you're listening here, there may be experiences from your own past and from your own childhood that come to light that you're like, oh, that probably did have a bigger effect on me than I thought. So for me, for those of you who don't know me, I grew up in a small town on the east coast of Canada, and you know, my parents owned a gym. And because this is a small town, if you live in a small town or if you grew up in a small town, you know exactly what it's like, that like the business owners of the community, like everyone knows, like, oh, they're the people who own that restaurant, or they're the people who own that gym, or they're the people who own that grocery store, or whatever. Like small towns, just like everybody's in everybody's business and everybody knows everything about everybody. And so growing up in a small town as the child of gym owners, as you can potentially imagine, this created a lot of pressure. And my parents obviously never in a million years wanted that pressure to be on us in any way, but this is life in a small town sometimes. This is, you know, there are many upsides to small towns. This is one of the downsides, is that there was a lot of expectation placed on me and my sisters as to who we should be in order to be the good daughter of gym owners. You know, there's pressure to be fit, to be thin, to be really healthy, to always be eating healthy. And that was one aspect that immediately, you know, previously I hadn't been all that conscious about my body and what it looked like. I didn't feel all that self-conscious. And then all of a sudden, when I was a teenager, all of a sudden I started to notice that people were noticing these things about me. And not only were they noticing these things, they were making judgments. And not only were they noticing these things about me, but they were noticing these things about my mom. And it's the wildest thing. My mom would be in the grocery store, and, you know, she's in really great shape, so, and owns the gym. So like she'd be in the grocery store and people would come up to her in the grocery store and start digging through her cart to see what she was eating. The fucking audacity. Like, no boundaries whatsoever. People have no sense of appropriate boundaries. Just like walking up to a woman who's just trying to do her grocery shopping. And I remember my mom telling me there was one time when she just got so fed up with it that she happened to be near like cookies while they were doing this. And so like my mom never bought cookies, but they were digging through her cart. So she's like, oh, I'll just grab these Oreos and put them in the cart. She was just like tired of it. And there was just this overall, the sense of being watched and judged. And, you know, as a teenager, I remember one time I was out with a friend at the ice cream place after school or something, or I don't even remember if I was actually there, but someone told on me to my parents that, hi, Jacqueline, they told on me to my parents that I went out for ice cream. This was somebody I didn't even know. This is somebody, like, first of all, I was allowed to eat ice cream. Like, but there was just this perception of no matter where I go in this town, what I'm eating is scrutinized. What I'm doing, who I'm with. And the thing is I didn't even know most of these people. They knew who I was, but I didn't even know most of these people. So there was already, from just, you know, being a teenager in a small town, you know, the daughter of the gym owners, people knew who I was. I didn't know who they were, but they were sure as hell judging me already. And, you know, add to the fact that, like, you know, I know I'm not going to speak to my mom's journey because it's not really my story to tell, but my mom had her own journey when it came to her relationship with food and all of that. And what I do know is that she was doing her absolute best to break cycles with me, to not pass on the baggage that had been given to her. And unfortunately, some still got through, as is the case very often. I grew up in a household where eating healthy was the name of the game. We were eating, you know, in the early 90s, we were eating quinoa and pumpernickel bagels and like just a bunch of things that were like weird for a small town on the east coast of Canada in the early 90s. Like nobody knew what quinoa was. So we were like the weird ones for eating stuff like this. And I grew to resent it, not only because it was weird and people didn't know what it was, and I always got weird looks when I brought my food to school and people didn't know what it was, but also because sometimes I just wanted to like bring home a bag of chips and be able to just eat it freely without feeling like I'm doing something wrong. And I did end up feeling in an environment like that, I did feel like I had to sneak. I felt like I had to sneak when I wanted to have chocolate or chips or something like that. I felt this heavy shame associated with wanting that stuff because it was bad. I felt just this cloud of judgment and shame that I was carrying around everything. And there's one experience, I was probably 8, 9 years old, and I was at a friend's house, and there was a bunch of, like, it was like a sleepover or something, and a bunch of us were watching a movie, and there were like several bowls of chips and cheesies and stuff like that. And I had no self-control because I didn't feel like I was allowed to eat that stuff. So it's, for those of you who do shadow work or have worked with me, you know that when you suppress a part of yourself, when you suppress a desire, that desire doesn't go away. It actually becomes even harder to control. And so because I thought it was bad to want these foods, the minute I was in front of them, I had no self-control. And I ate the bowl of cheesies, and it was gone like in the first few minutes of the movie. And I remember someone asking, like, who ate all the cheesies? And I remember sitting there like, I don't know. And the moment, like that shame of, oh my God, I have no control. This, I was probably like maybe 10 years old at this point. But just that feeling of, I wanted to disappear into the carpet, into the couch cushions. I felt so ashamed and humiliated that everyone else seemed to be able to just enjoy food. And I already felt like I had no control over it, even at that age. And so into my teen years, feeling like I had to sneak it, feeling like food was something like, I wanted to have the good food, that I wanted to have chocolate and chips, and like I wanted to be able to eat that stuff, but it really wasn't welcomed. And it's not that I was never ever allowed to eat it, but we didn't keep it in our house. It was, pretty much a healthy food only house. And so whenever I had the chance, if I had some money, I would go to the store and like buy a bunch of chocolate bars or whatever, and then I would binge them in my room alone and stuff the wrappers in a bag in the closet or under the bed. And that's when my binge eating really started. It's just this feeling of, I'm not allowed to want this, but I do. I want this thing that I'm wrong for wanting. But the things that we desire, they don't go away just because we make ourselves wrong for wanting them. And I ended up getting caught in my binge eating because I threw away the bag of the wrappers and I took out the garbage and I put it in the garage. But I never took out the garbage. So my mom was immediately suspicious and went and looked inside the bag, and sure enough found all of my wrappers and everything. And I think she didn't know how to have these kinds of conversations at that time. And I know that it would go very differently if that were to happen today. But at that time, it was very much like, you lied, you sneaked. And that was the focus. And there really wasn't any focus on what's going on. Why did you feel like you had to do that? What's happening here? And we're talking about 20 to 30 years ago. And so I don't blame my mom for not having the language to have those types of conversations back then. Like, this is a whole different time. Personal development was not as readily available as it is now. But it did create, unfortunately, this feeling within myself that not only do I have to feel ashamed for wanting chocolate and chips and junk food, but now I feel ashamed because I can't control myself. And I feel ashamed because I lied about it, because I was hiding it. And so this whole relationship with food, like it just kept compounding throughout my teen years, feeling like I had no control over this. And at the same time, feeling this immense pressure. Now by the time I was 16, now I worked at the gym. And so now people knew, like, I work there. There's this expectation that I'm supposed to be healthy. I'm supposed to be perfectly healthy and fit and all of these things. I'm 16 years old. I just want to like go to McDonald's with my friends at 16, you know? And that pressure, what ended up happening is when I finally did move out on my own, you know, I moved and I lived with roommates for a while, so I still felt like I had to hide my binge eating. But then when I moved into Montreal, I moved to Montreal when I was about 21, 22, and I lived all alone. And so at this point, I lived on my own. My binge eating just escalated to insane levels. I binged until like I would feel so sick to my stomach, and yet I couldn't stop. Like it was this feeling, it was this compulsion. I warned you I might cry during this, because I feel really sad for that past version of me that just, I had no idea how to handle any of this. I was not equipped for I had no idea how to deal with shame or guilt or desires that were made wrong. I had no idea how to deal with any of that. And so I ate. Now, hi Danielle. Now, looking at me from the outside, nobody would have guessed that I had this problem, because I was exercising and I was managing to like almost keep up with everything I was eating. And I came very extreme, and I want to offer a little trigger warning here for eating disorders. I wouldn't say I never got diagnosed with anorexia or bulimia or anything. And, you know, I definitely not bulimia, because there were many times when I stood over the toilet ready to do it. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't make myself do it. And I'm really grateful for that now. But there was one time when I was standing over the toilet, ready to purge, and the phone rang at that moment, and I'm so grateful. I don't remember who it was or anything, but just, it got me out of it. It got me out of that moment. And I went through wild cycles of just this binge eating. And then of course the shame of, I have no self-control. I'm so bad. Like, what is wrong with me? To then extreme restriction, 1,000 calories a day, a lot of exercise, just these wild cycles that all rooted in shame, all rooted in self-hatred. And I didn't trust myself with anything. I didn't trust my desires, because I was afraid they would just overtake me and I would have no self-control. I always envied those people who could have, sugar or chips or something like sugary foods in the house and not feel like they had to eat it all. Like, for me, it was a constant cycle of like, I couldn't have ice cream in the house, because if I did, it was gone in one sitting. I couldn't control myself. I would eat until I was sick, until I felt sick to my stomach. And then the minute I felt not sick to my stomach anymore, I would just keep going. Or even like I would even eat beyond the point of being sick to my stomach. And I tried the diet industry offers so many solutions to to losing weight, to eating healthy. The thing is I knew how to eat healthy. I grew up in a gym. I grew up with all the resources in the world on how to exercise and eat healthy. I knew how to do it. I knew how to eat healthy. I know about macros. Like I've got a really good grasp on that, and I always have since my teen years. It didn't matter. I had no self-control, and so the more out of control I felt, the lower my self-esteem plummeted. And I would go, and there were times when I lost a lot of weight. When I decided to buckle down, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. There was one point when I reached about 180 pounds or something, and I was just like, this has gone far enough. And I joined Beachbody or whatever. I got the Insanity program and did all the things, and I lost a lot of weight, and I got down to like super fit. My body looked great. I could wear anything. I felt sexy. But it was so unsustainable. It was so unsustainable. The minute I relaxed with my exercise or with what I was eating, the minute I relaxed, it just started coming back on immediately. And now I'm able to look back and see that that's because that's not the weight my body wants to be at. And I can see that now. But in that moment, it felt like it was slipping through my fingers. It felt like all this hard work I did, like I can't maintain it because it's not meant to be maintained. But I would go through these seasons of losing a lot of weight, eating being so obsessed with what I'm eating and tracking every calorie and, never ever missing a workout, no matter how beat up I feel. And if you've ever done the Insanity program, you know how sometimes your ass feels beat up sometimes in that program. Like now, if I were to ever do that again, I would do it very differently. I wouldn't be doing that workout every day. So I went through these seasons, just this wild, obsession with everything, tracking every single thing I was eating and working out obsessively, to complete avoidance of it. Complete, I give up. I can't maintain this. Maybe I'm just meant to be fat. All of these self-hatred thoughts. You've seen it. It was nuts. It is. And, the thing is I it's not that I would never do that workout again, but I would not do it every day the way that I did. I might do it a couple times a week just to give just to spice up the routine a little bit, because it is a really great challenge. And there were a lot of things I loved about that program, but it was coming from such a place of self-hatred within me that it totally ruined the experience. And so these wild ups and downs, I would descend into binging again because I had restricted myself for so long in these obsessive periods. The binging just came right back because I didn't deal with the root cause of it. It took me, at this point in my life, I'm in my 20s. I didn't even know anything about emotions. I didn't know anything about healing or personal development or energy or I didn't know any of that. I had no clue that I didn't know about emotional eating at this point. I think I might have heard of it, but at that point in my life, I didn't even really know what that meant. I'm like, what do you mean I'm eating my feelings? I don't get it. I'd never really understood it until I was a little older, maybe 30 plus. So, my Saturn return, things started to change. I started having kids and my body changed, as it does after you have kids. And the first time I was able to bounce back after my son through, again, the obsessive cycle, But after my daughter, it didn't do that. Oh, thank you, Tanya. My body didn't bounce back, regardless of suddenly all the things that I used to do before, the obsessive exercise, the obsessing about what I eat, all of this, like trying to figure out what diet's going to get me there. All of a sudden, it just stopped working. And no matter what I did, nothing worked. My body just wouldn't respond to it anymore. Like my body was drawing a hard boundary. And this was after the birth of my daughter. So she's 7 now. And so for the first couple of years, like I really fought hard trying to like coerce my body the same way that I always had. And it took me a couple of years to finally be like, it's not working. Like, I think it was in maybe 2017. She was born in 2015. And I think it was in 2017. I remember there was a moment where I was looking online at the Whole30. And it was so restrictive, no dairy, no gluten, no this, no that. No this. I was thinking like, I'm so tired of the restriction. I'm so tired of this. Like, this can't be the only way to do this. I was like, I understand discipline and making good choices, but like this extreme, does it have to be this extreme in order for me to feel good, in order for me to, feel good in my body? And this was the first time that it occurred to me to start meditating before I eat. 5 minutes. I started just playing with this, just seeing like, what if it works? I was like, nothing else has really worked. So let me just it sounds stupid, but let me try it. And so I created this little 5-minute meditation of just like getting myself in a really good place before I start eating. And, just really being grateful for the food that's in front of me and like getting myself in a really good energy and then just eating. And so I told myself, for the next 30 days, I'm just going to try this. I'm not going to try to restrict what I'm eating. I'm not going to try to control myself in any way. Let me just see what happens if every single time I want to eat, I just sit for 5 minutes and meditate. And my body responded so positively to that. It was the first time in my life that I started to realize that there was more to my relationship with my body than controlling my calories and exercise. It was the first time that my eyes were open to the fact that it was like, the energy matters. Who I am when I'm eating matters. Like, this isn't just a matter of calories in, calories out. There's more at play here. And, I still wasn't at the place where I really loved myself and where I really had a great relationship with my body. But that was a big turning point, was when I realized just 5 minutes before I eat. I mean, first of all, there's the fact that if you have to sit and having this rule of thumb where if I can eat whenever I want, I just need to sit for 5 minutes and meditate first. Sometimes I'd be like, I'm not actually that hungry. I don't really need to. I don't really need to eat. And so naturally, I probably consumed less because of that, because I was just simply taking that little moment of pause to be like, am I actually hungry? And actually asking myself the question instead of just eating mindlessly. But also, even when I did say, yeah, I do want to eat. I am hungry. Taking the moment to get myself aligned with it. And actually being in a place to enjoy and taste my food and slow down and savor it. It started to really shift how I thought about food and how I related to the way my body processes food. And at this point, it's, 2017, that's 5 years ago. I still had a very long way to go on this journey, but that was a massive turning point there. And at that point in my life, I did not have the level of self-love and discipline to continue meditating before every single time I eat and to have that mindfulness long term. So I did initially lose some weight, but then I ended up gaining it back because I didn't have the infrastructure within myself to maintain that practice. I still self-sabotaged a lot. I still, like, once things would start going well, I still had a lot of that junk in the way, a lot of those mindset issues, a lot of those emotional issues that caused me to get off track. Even if things were going great, my body's responding great, I didn't maintain it because I had a lot in the way still. And, at this point in my life, I'm living in Montreal. I've got 2 kids. I'm married. And unfortunately, my husband, I wouldn't classify him as a binge eater, but he certainly did not mind the fact, we would often eat a lot of junk food and pop. And I say junk food, not because I don't actually resonate with the term junk food anymore, because I don't like classifying things as good or bad when it comes to food, but we would eat very sugary foods, very chips and a big bottle of Pepsi, and that was kind of a shared thing of ours. So it was not the healthiest. And so being in a relationship where eating food like that is just the norm, and that's just what you do after the kids are in bed, you sit, you watch TV, you eat, and you drink pop, and that was just what we did a lot of the time. And so being in an environment that's like that is not really conducive. And even when I try to say, no, I'm not going to have any, sitting next to your partner who's enjoying all of that stuff beside you, and I didn't want to deprive him. I didn't want to force him to make changes that just because I was deciding to make changes. So there was a lot of reasons it felt really hard to stick with anything in that environment. And, I would find myself going to the store across the street, almost in a dissociative state, almost in a fugue state, buying these foods, the cookies and the chips and stuff and the ice cream, and almost not even realizing that I've done it until I'm already elbow deep into the bag of chips, until I've already eaten half the thing of ice cream. It's almost after I do that, it's I realize, oh yeah, I forgot I wanted to eat healthier. It's I didn't, there was no awareness. It was just such an unconscious thing, which sounds crazy because it involves getting your coat on, getting your keys, going down the stairs, walking across the street, going to the store, choosing what you're going to buy, coming back, sitting down, opening up the things and eating it. And yet all of that was literally on autopilot. The same way that you brush your teeth, or the same way you tie your shoes, or the same way you do anything, it was on autopilot to that extent. And I was that's very concerning to me, that level of action against myself is just on autopilot. I have gotten into such a habit of self-destructive behavior that I don't even, I'm not even aware of it. I barely even remember. I don't remember making the decision to go to the store. I don't remember, it's just a blur until all of a sudden I'm conscious and I realize I feel sick to my stomach because I've already eaten too much, and yet here I am continuing. So, there was a lot to untangle here. There was a lot. And during all of this time, as you can imagine, I'm disconnecting more and more and more from my body, because being in my body is a very painful experience. With the way that I was treating my body, being in my body was a very painful experience. It's painful to feel sick to your stomach and yet still be putting food in your mouth. It's painful to have this much emotion that you have no idea what to do with. It's painful to to exercise so much that you're hurting yourself. All of that is like, it was extremely painful to be in my body. So of course I'm disconnecting more and more from my body, which means I'm also disconnecting from my sensuality. I'm disconnecting from my femininity more and more and more as years go by. And now I look at pictures of myself from 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I'm just like, oh, like I'm so sad for that version of myself that just kind of went that far, strayed that far from myself. So in 2019, in August 2019, I left my marriage. That was a long time coming. That's a whole other story. I've told that story in the Magnetic Femininity Facebook group. So I'm not going to tell that again. But what happened when I left my marriage is all of a sudden, my body felt, no, actually, let me rewind to 1 week before I left my marriage. So some of you may have heard me tell the story that I had this dream on August 17th. I remember the date because I remember how it felt. I remember this like it was yesterday. 2019, on August 17th, I woke up at about 4 a.m. after having the most incredible dream of my life that I don't know what this dream was. Like, I don't know what it was, but basically the dream, I was with the love of my life, who was not my husband, and I didn't know who it was. There was a face plastered on it, like on the dream, of somebody that I knew, and I knew it wasn't the guy who owned that face. That was just a representation for the sake of the dream. But in this dream, we were sensual and playful, and we were in love. And this dream, I touched love in that dream in a way that I'd never touched it in real life. And what really struck me most about that dream was not who the man was, but it was who I was. Because in that dream, like, I was so open and playful and feminine and confident and like in touch with my sensuality and my sexuality. And like, I felt this version of myself come through that I was like, who was that? I want to be her. Like, that felt amazing. And it was like, this is how it gets to feel. And literally from the moment of that dream, I was like, okay, if I was this woman that I felt I was in the dream, what would I eat today? I would have, a really yummy chicken salad instead of just a bowl of sugary cereal. Okay, chicken salad it is, great. I started cleaning my house more. I started I became a different person so fast because I got a little glimpse of what it feels like to be fully me. And I mean, now, like, the woman in that dream, like, I am her now. Like, I am her. But like that, I had never felt that in my life until that point. And so all of a sudden, I started so suddenly acting like this new version of me that my husband was like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, you're so different today. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel really good. And then a week later, I ended up asking for a divorce and ending my marriage. And the effect that had on me. So when I asked for a divorce, my ex-husband, he's from Montreal originally. So he flew back to Montreal for a month to just process, to be with his family. And while he was gone, that was the first time that I lived alone for a month, well, with my kids, in 13 years, however long it was. Yeah, 13 years. And I felt completely free to be myself for the first time in all of that time. And every day, instead of watching TV at night and, just mindlessly eating, asking myself, like, what do I want to feel? Who do I want to be? Like, what do I want to experience today? And dancing in the kitchen, listening to music that I wanted to listen to, singing, taking baths, like just exploring what makes me feel good. Like, gosh, I had been so disconnected from my sensuality for so long. And I realized that a part of that was because I knew the impact that being in my body would have on my husband. And to be honest, I knew I was in the wrong relationship, and I didn't really want to have that impact on him. I didn't want him to be attracted to me. My body was already shutting down. I manifested so many physical ailments in the last year of our marriage, so many physical reasons to be able to say no to sex, because I was already aware on some level that I didn't want to be there anymore. And I was pushing away intimacy. So it was a very liberating experience to all of a sudden I'm in the house by myself, and the kids are in school during the day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can be myself. And I started reconnecting with some of these parts of myself that I had discarded or suppressed or made wrong for so long. I started reconnecting with my sensuality. I started dating, not for the sake of finding a relationship, but I was just like, I want to see, I started my dating journey right after my marriage ended, because I was like, I want to see who I am. I want all that to be reflected back to me. And that was actually really awesome, because I ended up getting a lot of need for healing reflected back to me. So I was able to move through a lot quite quickly in approaching it that way. And when my husband at that time got back from Montreal and got back to our house, I remember him saying, you look like you're in love already. He thought I found somebody else and was already in love, and he was absolutely gutted, because he was sure that I'd already moved on and found someone else, and I was already in love and planning a life with someone else. And I said, no, this is just me. I'm happy. And I know that's probably painful for you, but this is all it is. I'm just really happy now. And of course, that was a painful thing for him to hear, but it was the truth. It was, I finally felt free to be myself. And I want to clarify too, that when I say I was finally free to be myself, I'm not saying that he was not that he was telling me I couldn't be myself. This was to do with me, not him. It's not his fault that I didn't feel free to be myself. It was me. I restricted myself. So in that time period, I started really even discovering and delving into my sensuality and my sexuality in ways that I never really felt safe to before. So in the last few years, that's been 3 years since I left my marriage. The last few years, I have come to create a really nourishing relationship with my body. And a moment that I remember was shortly after I left my marriage, and I was dissatisfied with my body. And I was thinking, what if I just got liposuction? Just get rid of anything I don't want, perk up everything I do want, just go that route, But I was but I'd still have to have really good habits in order to maintain it, right? You can't just go get surgery and then go back to whatever I was doing before. You have to have good, healthy eating habits, and you have to exercise. You still have to do all of that stuff. And I was thinking in my head, yeah, but if I had that body, I totally would maintain it. And that was a moment of clarity, because I was like, well, wait a minute. If I'd be willing to do it, if my body was already perfect, why am I not willing to do it now? Why do I feel like my body is worthy of being treated kindly and lovingly and being taken care of if it's the perfect shape that surgery created, and I don't feel like I can do that now? What's the difference? And I realized that I the answer for me was, well, my body is worthy when it looks like this, not when it looks like this. My body is worthy of amazing, nourishing food and exercise and movement and sensuality if it looks the way I want it to look. And so that really opened my eyes in that moment. And I realized, like, what if I just started treating my body now the way that I would treat it if I deemed it worthy? And so I started asking myself, like, if my body was worthy of the best now, like, what would I do differently? And so that started, like, I started exploring different clothes. I started wearing clothes that made me feel good now. I started curling my hair. Like that was when I started curling my hair, like back in 2019, there was a point in time when I decided, like, I want to curl my hair. That was because of that. That was because I realized, like, if I just decided that I'm hot now and I treated myself that way, I was like, if I had the perfect body, I would curl my hair every day. I would wear makeup and like really like put effort into my appearance and really like take pride in that. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start doing that now. So I did. And I mean, I've been doing it most days since. I started moving my body through dance, through exercise, through whatever I felt like. I started choosing food more often that nourishes me rather than like, oh, I have to eat a salad because I was bad and, had McDonald's with the kids yesterday. It wasn't from that space. It was like, I had McDonald's with the kids yesterday and I'm feeling in my body that my body really didn't like that. So I want to choose something that's really nourishing. I want to choose something that's going to make me feel like open and regulated and energized. I started choosing foods for a completely different purpose. Never as like, okay, I'm going to step on the scale and see what I'm allowed to eat today, because that's what I used to do. And I don't do that anymore. And speaking of the scale, last year there came a point where I decided I needed to toss the scale completely. There was a point where it was like, oh my God, I'm checking it every day. And there was still that stickiness of like, I'm checking it and basing my decisions based on what I see and be like, do I deserve to have this food today? Or like, do I have to be good or whatever? There was still some stickiness around that. So last year I put the scale like way in the back of a closet so that I was not able to look at it every day. And I decided at that time, I'm going to focus on learning my body. Not based on what the scale tells me, but I'm going to really learn my body this time. Like, I'm going to figure out what makes me feel good, what doesn't make me feel good. I'm going to learn. As if like I'm in a new relationship with somebody. Like, I want to learn what makes you tick. I want to learn what makes you happy, what pisses you off, what makes you feel sad. Like, I want to learn me. And so I did. And now I'm in a season where I do have my scale again and I'm checking, like I'm stepping on it most days. However, when I step on it now, I don't feel, my mood doesn't fluctuate based on what I see on the scale. My food choices are not based on what I see on the scale. The scale is like a general trend. And, some days I'm going to be 5 pounds more because of bloating or whatever. Some days it's going to be lower, but it's just seeing where the general trend is, which is such a different way than I used to experience it. And this is like, now I still can enjoy going to McDonald's with my kids. Like, I'm not so restrictive where I'm like, there's foods that I'm not allowed to have. There is no food that I'm not allowed to have. But now I can have ice cream in the freezer and it'll be there for the week. And I have some when I feel like it and the kids will have some or whatever. Like, I can have pizza in the freezer and not feel like I need to eat the whole thing all at once. Like, have a couple of slices. I can, and I mean, certainly there's lots of like kids snacky foods like fruit roll-ups and stuff like that for their lunches that like I don't even like those. I have a level of discernment now that I didn't have before. Now I don't like the kids snacky stuff. I don't really like it. But before, it wouldn't have even mattered if I didn't like it or not, because I was so addicted to sugar. I was so addicted to it that it wouldn't have mattered if I liked it or not. I would eat it anyway. But now, I don't even like fruit roll-ups. I'm not going to touch it. And, you know, same thing with like, I buy chocolate chip cookies for Liam, because that's one of his favorite snacks. I don't even really like them. So I might have a couple of them, but like, the box can sit there for weeks for all I care. It's not something that I feel like I have to hold back on anymore. Like, so it's a completely different relationship with food. And now, you know, I've gotten into a groove and finding what I like and being able to listen to my body as I'm eating. So I'm not like eating until I feel sick and then eating some more. And where I am now is like, even on my worst day, you know, like when you're PMSing and you just want to have like all the peanut M&Ms and peanut M&Ms and mozzarella sticks are like my period foods. Like those are the things, like the jalapeno mozzarella sticks and the peanut M&Ms. Those, like, whenever I start craving those, I was like, okay, it's it's almost that time of the month. And like, even on my worst day with that, it's nowhere near what it was when I was binging, because now I know what to do with all the emotions. I got to the root cause for all of it. And I continue to, like, I shouldn't say that like I got to it and it's fixed and I never have to deal with it again. I have a level of awareness now that I can't go back. I can't go back to where I was. Like, there's no way that I could ever go back to the habits that I had before, because I've come too far. And I'm so much more rooted in myself now that the minute I start feeling that I'm straying from myself, the minute I start, I notice it very quickly when I'm suppressing parts of myself, when I'm not feeling my feelings. I recognize that little low grade anxiety that starts feeling a little crunchy, and I'm able to come back to myself so much faster now that there's no way in hell I would ever get to the point that I was before, where just like really, really intense binge eating. So I won't pretend that my journey is finished, but I have come a long way. And what's really incredible to me is the fact that right now I weigh over 200 pounds, and I'm very healthy. I exercise most days. Like, I'm really fit, but I weigh like more than I weighed when I was pregnant. And that's wild to me, because like, I actually love my body now. I love my body now more than I did when I was 150 pounds, but trying to control myself to such an extent, like everything was wrong about myself. Everything was wrong. And nothing was good enough. And finding that, like, and actually earlier this year, I stepped on the scale for the first time in like 8 months. Because, you know, last year I threw away or got rid of the scale. And then earlier this year, I went to the gym and I decided to step on the scale at the gym, and it said 216 pounds. And I was like, I had this moment of, are you sure? Because I feel really good. Like, are you sure that's correct? Because like, I actually feel really good in my body. And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, I look good. I feel good. And so it was this moment of like trying to connect what I was trying to reconcile in my head. Like, but this isn't, like, I always thought 216 pounds, like, I always thought that would be like the worst thing in the world. And I was like, but this, I don't feel bad. Huh. And so it was really in that moment, I was like, I did it. I've completely unhooked my self-image from the number on the scale, because I'm looking at this number that I always thought would be the worst thing that could possibly happen. And I'm like, huh, really? And so I took that and I was like, okay, so I looked at my portions and I was like, okay, maybe there are some things that I can fine tune, because I am gaining weight. So like, maybe there are some things that I can fine tune. But it was just this moment of realization that I was like, I don't feel bad about myself though. Like, I weigh that was the most I've ever weighed in my entire life. And even now I'm still a bit over 200. So I've lost some weight because I've been kind of dialing in what feels good for me. But yeah, it's just this completely different attitude about it, where I'm not really in any mad rush to lose weight, to get to a certain number, to get to a certain goal. It's just, okay, so like, we're going to fine tune some things. We're going to pay attention to our body. We're going to, like, if there are certain foods that don't feel good, we will make sure we keep that in mind so that we don't overdo it. So that maybe we find a better substitution or something. There are things to fine tune. There are things to dial in. But I'm not unworthy until I hit whatever arbitrary goal. And that felt like something to really celebrate for me. And I've realized that now in the last few years, I have the tools to deal with the emotions, and I'm so good at using them now that like when I feel a lot of strong emotion, I actually, even if there's food in front of me, I actually I don't want to eat until I've worked, because it's almost like my inner child that used to turn to food because that was the only reliable source of comfort, or it was the only way to feel like I was powerful enough because nobody could tell me what to do. Food had been controlled my whole childhood, so it was like eating was my way of taking back power. So it was my way of feeling powerful. It was my way of feeling comforted. And so my whole relationship with food revolved around those things. And now I have the tools. So my inner child is able to come to me and say like, I feel powerless, help me. Or, I feel I need comfort, I'm scared, like, help me. So my inner child comes to me. And instead of like walking me across the street to the store in a fugue state to buy all of this food to get that comfort or that power, I have the tools to handle it through reparenting myself, through feeling through all of these things. And so now I can enjoy food, whatever food I want, from a place of like, there's nothing wrong, everything is enough. And I know that when it's strong emotions that are coming up, like I find myself pushing my plate away, dealing with it, and then deciding if I want to eat or not. And sometimes I do. Sometimes I still want the mozzarella sticks, even after I've dealt with the emotions, and that's fine. But I've just made this commitment to myself where I don't use food to plug those holes anymore, to fill those voids anymore. But I can still eat what I want. And so there's been such an evolution in this relationship. And so what my hope is in me sharing this journey is that it helps you understand, first of all, that you're not alone if you're experiencing these things, or if you've experienced these things. Like, there's no shame in like, if you've had these habits of binge eating, you're not alone. It's just that most people are so ashamed about it that they don't want to talk about it. And it happens so much more than you know. We use food for all kinds of things, to plug all kinds of voids, when we don't know better, when we don't know how to deal with it otherwise. And, I'm a mother, and I have a daughter especially who I can see is especially susceptible to emotional eating. So I'm doing my absolute best to break as many of these cycles as I possibly can for her sake, just as much as for mine, if not more. And she may have her own journey, like just like I had my own journey, and my mom couldn't protect me from everything to do with this. My daughter may have her own journey, and there's the only thing I can do is model the best example I possibly can with my own relationship with food myself. So now I want to talk about something that's going to be coming up later this month. So if you feel complete in this and you want to end it here, then I just want to thank you so much for watching. And I really love you and I appreciate you, and you're not alone in whatever you're experiencing with your body or struggling with. And now I want to talk about the body. The body. This is a new program that I'm creating. And it's the first time in Magnetic Femininity that I'm creating something like this that is really, oh, thank you so much, Jacqueline. I'm creating a program where I'm going to be sharing even more of everything that I've been through with my body, with more stories and examples and anecdotes and more things, more tools for you to use on your own journey with your body. I'm going to be sharing what worked for me in detail. I'm going to be sharing what didn't work for me. How I went for, we're going to be talking about the relationship with food and with exercise and with loving your body, all the things that I've been talking about. We're also going to be talking about something that I didn't get into a whole lot today, but your connection with your sensuality and your sexuality. And for me, I have experienced sexual trauma, and unfortunately that played a big role in me disconnecting from my body as well. And so I'm going to share in this program like how I healed that, how I reconnected with my body after sexual trauma, and after like in being in a situation in my life, in a marriage that I wasn't happy in. And I'm going to be sharing how I navigated that and how you can navigate that for yourself. Like there was a point a few years ago where I really thought like, oh, if I never have sex again, I'll be fine. And now I can't even believe that I'm in the same human who said that a few years ago, because that is not the case anymore. That is not the case anymore. I've reconnected with myself so much, and I'm sure there's always going to be more reconnection. There's more depths to the relationship with yourself. I don't believe we ever have an end point with that. But let's just say that I've healed my relationship with sex, and it's like I was able to overcome that. I'm going to share all about that in the program. I'm going to share how I healed my binge eating, what I did with the emotions that I was stuffing down, like what happened, like from the moment, like I'm going to share how I went from, walking to the store in a fugue state, and completely like in a complete state of self-destruction and not knowing what to do with any of it. So just being on autopilot against myself, to now being very mindful and being able to like have a real relationship with food where I'm able to enjoy it and taste it and love it, and also push the plate away when I'm done. I'm finally one of those people who can like just eat in moderation and not feel like I have to finish every bite because I can't control myself, I'm going to share how I identified what was driving me to eat. And, I mentioned like that I used food as a way of gaining power, as a way of feeling powerful, and as a source of comfort. And I'm going to help you identify as well for yourself, like what food is to you, like where's the core of this pain that you're pushing down and suppressing and maybe replacing with food, or a dysfunctional relationship with food. Learning how to truly love and care for your body the way it is now without needing it to be any different in order to feel worthy of that. And having it come from a place of self-love instead of a place of self-hatred. Developing a really deeply connected relationship with your body and learning how to listen to it more effectively. How to be confident in your body at any size. It means like being able to wear the clothes you want to wear, like the feeling like you're like always tugging at yourself, like always like, you know, but actually being able to be confident, like going to the beach in a bikini and rocking it, regardless of what your size is. My body is not what the media deems a bikini body. I've had 2 kids. I have a belly. I have big hips. I have cellulite. Like, I do not have what the meat, like if I were a celebrity, I would be on the cover of every tabloid with a big red circle around and an arrow pointing at my butt. She has cellulite. Yes, ma'am, I do. I do. And the thing is, I don't care now. It's so freaking liberating. I go to the beach all the time. I wear sexy bathing suits all the time. And I love it. It doesn't stop me from living my life. And of course, how I created a really nurturing relationship with pleasure and sex. This has been big. So there's going to be 5 modules in this program. Now, if you're already in the portal, which is my year-long program that encompasses all of it, then you're going to get this included. You're going to be there. You're going to get to be there live. If you're in the portal, like I'm going to be recording the modules live in our portal group. You'll get to be there live, interact, ask questions, and all of that. However, this body of work, this program feels too important to only limit it to people who are in the portal. This is something that is so needed at this time. So if you're not in the portal, then what I'm offering to you is that you can pre-purchase the recordings of it for $333. So the week of October 17th, I'm going to be delivering the program live in the portal. And on November 1st, the recordings will be made available to anybody who pre-purchased it. And it's only $333 and you get lifetime access. It's a 5-module program, unless I decide to add more, which sometimes happens in programs. But as of right now, it's 5 modules. And the pre-purchase price is $333. That will be going up to $555. Now, this is going to be basically a self-study program. When you buy the program on its own, it's going to be self-study. If you're the kind of person who wants to have access to some support as you work your way through this program, there's also the option to get a month of Voxer support with me in addition to the program and in addition to the recordings for $888. And if you also want to have the recordings of the program, the Voxer, the 30 days of voice text messaging with me, and a one-on-one session with me where we sit down, we're on Zoom, like we're actually having a conversation, then you can get that for $1,111. And again, you have lifetime access to the recordings of the program, so you can go back to this as many times as you need to. As new layers start to surface, as new phases in your journey start to, as you embark on new phases of the journey, because what I needed a year ago was a little different than what I need today. And so this program, it's my goal that you'll be able to listen to this program now, like as I'm delivering it or when I release the recordings, and you will get exactly what you need. And then if you go back in a year when you're in a new phase of this body love journey, that you'll be able to go back to this program and you'll be able to get, again, what you need for your next phase of the journey. And you're going to hear it differently every time. So I'm going to post the link. There's not like a big long sales page or anything, but it's just a quick description of the program. I'm going to post the link in the comments of this live stream, and I'll also post it in the description of this live stream. So if you want it, you can come on in. And again, these pre-sale prices, I don't know exactly what date I'm going to be changing it, but it will be going up. I just don't know exactly when. But right now it's $333 to pre-purchase the recordings. And if you have any questions about the program or about the Voxer or anything like that, feel free to send me a DM and I'm happy to answer any questions you have before you purchase. And for those of you who've struggled with this, who've been on a journey with this and would really love to have some support, would love to learn from somebody who's done a lot of work on this, then I really hope I get to see you in the program. And I also have space to work with me one-on-one. So for those of you who like not only want to learn about this, but want to do all the things with me and work with me for a year and, you know, work on confidence and dating and relationships and communication and being a parent in your feminine energy and leadership and like all of the things, then come work with me one-on-one. We can work wonders in this year. And I also include a trip with me. When we work one-on-one together, you get to come. Like later this month, I'm going to Arizona. So there's one spot available. If you sign up as my one-on-one client by October 7th, you can come to Arizona with me for free, except for your plane ticket. I cover all the accommodations, the outings, the food, like it's all covered by me. Or there's also a Palm Springs trip happening next fall. And there may also be a Spain trip available in May or June. So if the Arizona one is not doable for you because it's too short notice, then you can still reach out and see what else is available. But I do have one-on-one spots available for those of you who would like to work with me in that capacity. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. This was a very emotional live stream. I'm going to go do some breathing a little bit before I go pick up my kids from school. But thank you all so much for being here, for listening. We've been on for over an hour now. I love you so much. You're beautiful, you're exquisite, and I will see you soon. Bye.